Good evening, and welcome to the evening version of Ways and Means. We apologize for being delayed. Half the committee was in Ways and Means, and then I believe in feeding my committee, so they have had dinner, so they'll be nicer and they won't be hangry. Um, Committee Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblywoman Brown May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblyman Haven.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdegi.
Here.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Here.
Assemblyman Miller.
Here.
Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
Assemblyman Yeager. And Chair Monroe Marino.
Thank you, and I am here. We also have Assemblyman O'Neill and Assemblywoman Dickman that are here as well. They walked in just after their names were called. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We will have public comment at the end of today's committee meeting. If you are watching us online or at home and you'd like to call in at the end for public comment, that number is 888-475-4499. Our meeting ID is 850-4583-4459, and then please press pound. I will remind people to turn off their electronic devices or at least put them on mute. Committee, we will be hearing 3 bill hearings tonight. 3 have had a hearing in a policy committee meeting, and our last bill has not. So on that bill, we'll hear some policy discussion and some fiscal aspects. The first 3 will just focus on the fiscal aspects of the policy. So with that, we will have open the hearing on Assembly Bill 140. It makes Juneteenth a legal holiday in the state of Nevada, and we'll welcome Assemblywoman Thomas to the table. Thank you for joining us.
And thank you, Chair Monroe Marino and Vice Chair Backus and committee members. I am Claire Thomas, representing Assembly District 17 in beautiful North Las Vegas. I am pleased to come before you to present Assembly Bill 140, which makes Juneteenth a legal holiday in Nevada rather than a day of observance. According to the Congressional Research Service Juneteenth fact sheet, the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect on January 1st, 1863. However, it was nearly 2.5 years later, on June 19th, 1865, when federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. It is this day, June 19th, 1865, in the last geographic area in America where slavery existed, that the slaves learned of their freedom. And it is on this day, June 19th, that we wish to commemorate Juneteenth Day. Currently, Nevada has 11 holidays, legal holidays. Juneteenth will be the 12th legal holiday for the state. The bill makes a conforming change to account for the closure of state, county, and city governmental offices for Juneteenth Day, and that is the entirety of the bill. The fiscal impact, according to the Department of Administration, is estimated to be $482,924 per fiscal year for 2023 through 2024 and 2024 through 2025. Additionally, there is a minimal impact for Washoe County as they currently observe the Juneteenth holiday. Thank you for listening to my brief remarks. I will do my best to answer questions from the committee.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for the brief history on Juneteenth. I know not everyone has heard of the holiday or understand the reasons why the holiday. As you know, our committee is a fiscal committee, and there are a few fiscal notes that are on this piece of legislation. Have you had an opportunity to reach out to, as I'm going through and highlighting all these, to the counties and the cities that submitted the fiscal notes, and as well as the Department of Administration for the state of Nevada? Get to state your name for the record.
Clara Thomas, Assembly District 17 for the record, and Chair Monroe Marino. The agency that submitted the fiscal impact, I believe, gave us the accurate impact that it will cost the state. So there was no, to me, need. We know that it will impact state employees, county employees.
I believe we have a phone a friend in too, from the state side. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Daniel Marlowe, Administrator for Administrative Services Division, Department of Administration. We submitted a fiscal note for the executive branch, not including NCHI, for payroll that runs through the central payroll system. We used the previous Labor Day as an example of a typical state holiday, which was a little over 11,000 hours. Typically, those hours for paid holidays are worked by police or fire or 24-hour agencies, and that $482,000 number is calculated off of the 11,000 hours plus estimated fringe with that police and fire, since their retirement and fringe rate is higher.
And then for the fire and police that would be working on this holiday, would they be paid at time and a half, and is that included in the amount of the fiscal note that you submitted?
Daniel Marlowe, for the record, that is correct. That is the time and a half rate. The estimated cost, the $482,000, would be anticipated to be covered using salary savings throughout the year, or potentially through contingency requests or salary adjustment funds, as any other shortfalls in personnel costs.
And before I go to other members, I know there's a few other questions. Just to confirm that the amount that's on the fiscal note also includes any PERS contribution, salary, everything is inclusive of the total amount on here.
Daniel Marlowe, for the record, that is correct. If I can get my screen to change. That includes Medicare, unemployment, workers' comp, and PERS contribution.
Perfect. Thank you. Members, any other questions? Assemblyman Haven.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Assemblywoman, for bringing this forward. I'm kind of perplexed on the Douglas County School District and their fiscal note. Kids aren't in school, correct? And yet they're claiming that all their 260 employees are going to have to be paid. So I'm just kind of curious if you had a chance to talk to them to get an explanation of why they're going to have to pay their employees when school's not actually in.
Thank you for the question. Assemblyman Hafen and through Assemblywoman Claire Thomas, for the record, I don't have Douglas County showing a fiscal note.
For clarification, it's actually the school district. And that was where my confusion was, because I know school's not in, and so I didn't understand why 260 teachers were going to be paid for a holiday. I think that they put that in air, but I just thought that maybe you could clarify that for us. Or maybe they're on a 12-month school year that I'm not aware of, but I just thought it was an odd fiscal note, and I was just hoping that maybe you had a chance to talk to them to ask them to remove it or clarify why that would be the case.
And Clara Thomas, Assemblywoman for District 17. No, I have not spoken with them. I haven't seen their fiscal note. And if I had, I would have asked them about Juneteenth and a fiscal note for something that they're not even in school for. But thank you for bringing that to my attention. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the question. And I believe in Douglas County, some of their schools are year-round schools. So for this day, it would be a paid holiday for those instructors that are assigned to those year-round schools.
That helps me understand better. Thank you.
You're welcome. I don't believe there's anyone here from Carson City or Clark County. If you are, and you could address the fiscal notes that you have on the bill. It does not affect my state budget, but I'd love to know why the fiscal notes are there. So if you are able to make contact with them before we have a work session and to bring that information to the work session, that would be great.
And please, Clara Thomas, Assembly District 17, for the record, please indicate Clark County and Douglas
Correct.
County.
Yes, for the local governments, the ones that submitted fiscal notes are the city, Boulder City, the city of Elko, the city of Mesquite, Carson City, Clark County, Humboldt County, Lyon County, Carson City School District, Douglas County, as we just discussed, are the local municipalities that submitted a fiscal note in addition to the one from the state.
And Clara Thomas, Assembly District 17, for the record, does it say when they submitted these?
Most of them were prepared February 22nd, 2023. It's under the local government tab. When you go,
Thank you.
there's a few pages as you scroll through. There's a few pages of them. So if you could bring that information back on the date of the work session, and I will be honest with you, that won't be anytime soon. So don't call us and say, when am I getting a work session? It's definitely going to be after May 10th. But members, any other questions? Yes, Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to know if you could clarify, how many state holidays did you say we paid state holidays we have? Was it 12, or this will be the 12th?
Clara Thomas, Assembly District 17, for the record, it is 11 paid holidays that the state of Nevada currently have, and Juneteenth would be the 12th.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no other questions, I thank you for presenting today, and we'll move to support. If there's anyone in the room that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 140, I welcome you to the table.
Good evening. Oh, am I on? Yeah. Good evening, Chairman Moreno and members of the committee. My name is Michelle Mayase, and I'm the president of SEIU Local 1107. Thank you for your time today. I'll be really brief. In 2022, June 17th, I sent an email to County Manager Yolanda King about declaring Juneteenth as a holiday and requesting that our members had it off to celebrate. And I won't read the entire email that I sent, but I want you to hear her response. I don't think we would be able to close Clark County since NRS requires some offices to be open to the public Monday through Friday, unless there's a state-declared holiday. I am hopeful that the 2023 legislature will pass Juneteenth as a holiday for our employees so that they can observe and celebrate the holiday with their families. So I wanted to make sure that I put that on the record. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dakota Hoskins, Political Director for SEIU Local 1107. We're just here, as you heard previously, we're here in support of the bill. SEIU is a anti-racist organization, and we believe celebrating and acknowledging this important holiday and important day in our country's history is something that we want to continue to bring forward and make sure we can celebrate it and also discuss it with Nevadans and our children. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, members of the committee. Nicole Rourke, representing the city of Henderson. In consultation with our DE&I coalition, our city council actually already has established for the city Juneteenth as a citywide holiday for employees. So we are here in support, and that is reflected in our $0 fiscal note. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony and that explanation on your $0 fiscal note. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to testify in support? Okay, seeing none, it does not look like we have anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to testify in support?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 140, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, you are muted.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Candace Townsend, and I represent the City of North Las Vegas. I'm calling to testify in support of AB 140. The City of North Las Vegas was the first municipality in Nevada to recognize Juneteenth after it became a federal holiday. For this and many other reasons, we are in strong support of AB 140. It is imperative that as a state we recognize and celebrate Juneteenth, often considered by some as America's second Independence Day. I want to thank Assemblywoman Thomas and all of her co-sponsors for bringing this important bill forward. I strongly urge you all to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other callers?
Chair, there are no additional callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we will move to opposition. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to testify in opposition of AB 140? Seeing none, and I still don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Do we have anyone on the telephone lines that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 140?
If you would like to testify in opposition to AB 140, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we will move to neutral. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to testify in the position of neutral? Seeing none, and still no one in Las Vegas, do we have anyone on the phone lines?
If you would like to testify in neutral, please press *9 now.
Good afternoon. This is Dee Evans, Juneteenth, Nevada. I was trying to get in earlier and could not get through, but I am here in support of AB 140. We are part of the National Juneteenth Observance Foundation, who obtained the federal holiday in 2021. And Juneteenth is the realization of freedom legislations. It is the actualization of the Emancipation Proclamation, General Orders Number 3, and the 13th Amendment, making this the true Day of Independence for America, adding balance to the celebration of freedoms as we recognize the wave of freedom in 2023. Again, I am here in sponsorship and in requesting that your vote passage of the Juneteenth AB 140, and I thank you for your support in advance.
Thank you so much, and we will move your testimony to support. And thank you for calling in and the work that you've done at the national level. Do we have anyone else on the phone lines that would like to testify in neutral?
Chair, there are no additional callers at this time.
Thank you so much. So with that, do you have any closing items before we?
That's a low chair. Yes, ma'am. Clara Thomas, Assembly District 17 for the record. In closing, I would like to thank the committee members for hearing this bill today, and I urge your support for Assembly Bill 140. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us tonight. Members, with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 140. Dang, I thought you guys just came for me. Wow. Okay. Well, we know how to clear a room, right? So with that, we'll move on to the second item on our agenda, Assembly Bill 277. And we will invite Assemblyman Cohen to the desk. Welcome to Ways and Means. It's not quite after dark yet, so I'll just say the evening version. Assembly Bill 277 establishes provisions governing rural emergency hospitals. And you can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Monroe Marino and committee members. My name is Greg Koenig. I represent Assembly District 38, which is the rural of the rurals. Pleased to come before you today to present AB Bill 277, which is seeking to establish rural emergency hospitals in our state. I'd like to give a special thanks to Chair Monroe Marino, who sought me out yesterday and told me I had this hearing, and me being a little bit new here and not quite knowing what to expect, kind of gave me a rundown and made me feel a lot more comfortable, and I appreciate that. The one thing she did say was to try to keep it brief, so I'm going to just read just a couple of the paragraphs of my introduction here. What we want to do here is to address the struggles of rural hospitals in Nevada and across the state. The rural hospitals in Nevada and throughout the nation are facing a crisis. In recent years, many of these facilities have been struggling to maintain their operations and meet the needs of their communities. When a rural hospital closes, communities lose access to essential health care services, such as emergency care, primary care, and behavioral health services. This can lead to long travel times to access care, worsening health outcomes, and the exacerbation of existing disparities in health equity in rural Nevada. It is a domino effect that impacts the entire community, from the families that rely on these hospitals for care to the healthcare professionals that lose their jobs and the local economies that will suffer. Recently, as of this January, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have created a new provider type, the Rural Emergency Hospital, which is something that can address the unique needs of our rural communities. I have Blaine Osborne here with me with the Nevada Rural Hospital Partners, and he is going to briefly go over what this bill covers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Monroe Moreno, members of the committee. Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners, for the record. This is a very exciting bill for us because, as you heard, Rural Emergency Hospital is a brand new type of hospital designation. It passed Congress in December of 2020, and just this January, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services finalized their rules on it. Since that time, we've had already 10 states take action through their legislatures to license rural hospitals at the state level, rural emergency hospitals at the state level. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. As Assemblyman Koenig mentioned, this is really another tool in the toolbox that will keep access to care in rural communities, as it gives hospitals another chance before they close to try this model. Really, this allows a rural hospital, and you already have to be a rural hospital, so with fewer than 50 beds. We've provided a map to the committee. There's only 13 critical access hospitals in the state that will qualify for this rural emergency hospital. And it allows them, rather than closing the whole hospital like what we saw with Tonopah in 2015, to shut down the inpatient unit of the hospital and keep their outpatient unit, their emergency department 24/7, their lab, pharmacy, radiology services, any distinct parts, skilled nursing, or psych or rehab services. So it keeps all of those services in the community. With that, really appreciate your consideration of AB 277 and would be happy to take any questions.
Greg Koenig, for the record. I've talked to some people from the Tonopah Hospital that closed down in 2015 that are under the opinion that if this existed at that point, they would have been able to make that conversion and not have to shut down. So we have a community, Tonopah, who's been without medical services for, my math is great, 8 years now, and that if this would have existed, probably would have been able to stay open. Another great piece of advice I received from Chair Monroe Moreno was find out who put the fiscal notes on your bill and go talk to them and see if they can bring those down. And I followed directions, but there's part of me that thought, yeah, what's the chance of that? So the two that had the fiscal note on this bill was DPBH and DHCFP. And I met with them this afternoon, and both of them have decided to withdraw their fiscal notes. And they are both here today to verify that, so you know I'm not just blowing smoke, but they can verify that they have removed the fiscal notes from this bill.
I just gotta say, I need you to tell everyone to follow the directions like you did. Yes. Good evening.
Madam Chair, committee member, Stacy Weeks for the record, Nevada Medicaid, DHCFP. When we did this analysis, we did state in the fiscal note, the statement that the majority of the cost is really the system changes that are involved, but, we expect only one actual hospital to take this up initially, and so we think the cost of the state is very minimal, and we assume that we can absorb the $10,000, as you can see, that's going to be ongoing for this program.
Madam Chair, committee members, Cody Finney, Deputy Administrator at Division of Public and Behavioral Health, would really like to thank Assemblyman Koenig for bringing us together this afternoon and explaining to us that this will be a replacement of some of our workload, not an addition to our workload in CQC or Healthcare Quality and Compliance, and we can absorb that without additional staff. So we are comfortable removing that note as well.
Thank you both for joining us tonight. Wow. Freshman legislators setting the bar really high tonight. Uh-oh.
So at this point, I'd like to open for any questions, and I reserve the right to phone a friend in Blaine if I don't know what's the answer.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions? Assemblywoman Kasama.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing forward this really important bill and helping the rurals. I just wanted to kind of get a background just so I understand. So this would be basically the big cost, it sounds like, has been the inpatient care. and that wasn't able to be sustained, so this will stop the inpatient care. I'm just curious, in the rurals, if they have 50 beds, were we only having like maybe 10 people in there or 15? I just kind of historical context.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. Blaine Osborne, Nevada Rural Hospital Partners, for the record. Madam Chair, through you to Assemblywoman Kasama. That's a great question, and I should clarify that the rule nationally is that you have to be a small rural hospital with fewer than 50 beds. In the state, our 13 critical access hospitals, to be a critical access hospital, you have to have 25 beds or fewer. So we even have less than that. And yes, sometimes those inpatient units see very, very low volumes. For example, 2 of our critical access hospitals only have 4 acute care beds. So they are very low volumes, high cost of care, high acuity in inpatient. And so that is where you would see that reduction in expense.
Wonderful. Thank you for that overview.
Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none. We will close the testimony and move to support. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 277? Seeing none. And I still don't see anyone in Las Vegas. So BPS, do we have anyone on the phone lines that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 277?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 277? Seeing none. Don't see anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, I assume there's still no one on the line. Is that correct?
Chair, that would be correct.
Thank you so much. And with that, we'll move on to neutral. Is there anyone that would like to testify in the neutral? Okay, seeing none, and there's no one in Las Vegas, and still no one on the phone lines, correct?
Chair, that is correct.
Awesome. Do you have any closing comments?
Greg Koenig for the record. Just want to thank you so much for hearing this and helping us to help our rurals to access quality health care. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and with that, we will close Assembly Bill 277. And we may have you do lessons on how to get your bill out of Ways and Means and higher up on the work session list. With that, we'll move on to the third item on our agenda, Assembly Bill 388. He did an excellent job. Good evening, Speaker Yeager, and we are ready to hear Assembly Bill 388. I don't believe this bill had a policy hearing, so this is the first hearing on this bill. Is that correct?
Steve Yeager for the record. It actually did have a policy hearing in judiciary.
So that was not updated. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and start.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It is good to be here and good to present to you. My name is Steve Yeager. I represent Assembly District 9, and it is a pleasure to present Assembly Bill 388 to you this evening. I think the reason we're here is because this includes an appropriation that is not included in the governor's executive budget. And Chair, to your question, we did have a hearing on this bill in the Judiciary Committee. Honestly, I don't know if it was a week ago or a month ago at this point, but we had one, and they kindly decided to process it out. So I'm not going to go through all of that hearing. We had a number of people there to help me present and support, but realizing it's Ways and Means and it's the evening, I'm going to greatly curtail that presentation. But I did just want to tell you, to really understand Assembly Bill 388, we do have to just go back in time a couple of sessions, and some of you were here Actually, I think all of you were probably here then, given the seniority on this committee. But we passed Assembly Bill 236 in the 2019 session, and that was the Justice Reinvestment Act. And that was a comprehensive criminal justice reform measure that was passed through the legislature and ultimately signed by Governor Sisolak. The impetus for that bill was a letter sent by our state leaders back in May of 2018, and that was a letter signed by then Governor Sandoval, Justice Douglas, who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Senate Majority Leader Aaron Ford, and the Speaker of the Assembly, Jason Frierson. They sent a letter to the federal government asking for help because our state was on track to have to build new prisons at a very large cost if we didn't do something to get our prison population under control. And I think at the time they realized that's probably not where the state wanted to be spending their money. Thankfully, we were chosen to be part of what's known as the Justice Reinvestment Program, which is a private-public partnership between the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Pew Charitable Trust. So they came into the state and they crunched all of our data. I feel bad for them. They spent just tons of time in basements with boxes of documents figuring out who was going to prison in the state and why and for what reasons. And ultimately, what came of that was Assembly Bill 236, which made some pretty substantial reforms. That bill went through a vetting process, probably unlike any other bill. It went through the interim process where I chaired the advisory committee on the administration of justice with Justice Hardesty and I co-chaired that committee, and we had about 2 years worth of hearings on that bill before we got to the 2019 session. We got to the 2019 session, and like every other bill we work on, we had hearings in both houses, we had working groups, and the bill was amended substantially throughout the process, as every bill is, and proud to say that ultimately that bill received bipartisan support and was signed by, as I said, Governor Sisolak. So why do I tell you all that? Part of the philosophy behind Assembly Bill 236 was reinvestment. It's called justice reinvestment. And the idea is you make changes to what you're doing in your state to be able to avoid having to do things like pay prisons. But you don't just put that money that you save essentially back in the general fund. You reinvest it in the criminal justice system on the front end of the system. And the idea there is you reinvest it so you can address some of the drivers of criminal activity. So mental health treatment, substance use disorders, things that can get people in the criminal justice system. You try to amplify that. So that was the idea behind the bill, and we were on track to do that. And then COVID hit, and those of us who came here for the 2020 special session when we had to slash all of our budgets, we know what that was like. It was awful. But the bottom line is there was no money for justice reinvestment. So the reinvestment part of that bill has not yet been realized. And that was the impetus for Assembly Bill 388. The reason this appropriation goes to the Department of Sentencing Policy is twofold. Number one, they are the agency that is tasked with figuring out how much, I don't want to say money we've saved because it's not saved money, but it's costs avoided. How much money we would have otherwise spent if not for Assembly Bill 236. So that is one of their duties. And the most recent projections that they have, I try to find it because it's been a changing number because COVID obviously changed the landscape of sort of what was happening in the justice system. But their projections is upwards of $480 million in costs avoided to the state over the next 10 years. And so number one, they have that, and number two, Assembly Bill 236 created in the bill a coordinating council called a Local Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. And the idea there is that we put together a council that was required to administer grants for money that were saved. And so this council is comprised of members from each county in the state, and then 2 members from Washoe County and 2 members from Clark County. And actually our colleague, Assemblyman Gray, was actually on the coordinating council for his county until he became elected to this office. And so I know he's not here, but he had some very positive things to say about the work of that coordinating council. So this council exists, and what they do is they look at where do we need more resources in our respective communities to address the drivers of the criminal justice system. The problem is they haven't had any money to do anything. So they have some good ideas and they have no funding. Ultimately, the Department of Sentencing Policy had a meeting, and they recommended $3 million as an ask for this cycle. And so you think about that, out of $480 million of costs avoided, they asked for $3 million. I'm not good at math, but that's like a fraction of a percent. Ultimately, that did not make it into the governor's executive budget, which led me to bring this bill here because I think, number one, this is how we can act upon and really realize the promise behind Assembly Bill 236. And, I should note, the Coordinating Council, it's prosecutors, it's public defenders, it's social services folks. So it's everybody in the criminal justice system. And just because this is probably a question that I'll get asked, one of the questions you may have is, well, what would they use this money for? Essentially what they would do is get together and decide the needs in their communities and grant the money to local either nonprofits or agencies doing criminal justice work. One of the programs they talked a lot about was the Mobile Outreach Safety Teams, called MOST. And the idea there is when law enforcement goes out and responds to someone in a mental health crisis or having substance abuse issues, they actually bring a mental health professional with them in the car. So they're able to talk to that person and determine, is this really someone who needs to go to jail, or is this someone who needs mental health treatment, someone who needs substance abuse treatment, or is this someone with a disability that's not able to communicate with officers in the way that officers expect? So that was one of the ideas that was raised. But in truth, it's going to be up to that coordinating council. So I'm here asking for what I think is a relatively small appropriation given the savings that will be realized from Assembly Bill 236 of $3 million to the Department of Sentencing Policy. I have certainly advised them that I would be asking for this on their behalf, but as I always do, I made no promises because I'm not the one who makes a decision. It's this committee who makes a decision, and ultimately the Assembly, the Senate, and the governor. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to leave it there and would be delighted to answer any questions that you may have, and just really appreciate the time that you gave me to present Assembly Bill 388 this evening.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Members, any questions? We cannot let him get off that easy. Assemblywoman Hadigi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation and the information, Speaker Yeager. The $3 million, did you work with the group to come up with that amount, or was this an amount you came up with on your own, and do you think that that's sufficient, or do you think that there will be money reverted to back?
Steve Yeager, for the record, excellent question, and that was a question that was asked in Judiciary, and I should note, when I presented in Judiciary, the Carson City District Attorney presented with me as well, but, it was like 6 o'clock tonight, so I said, don't worry about it, I'll handle this one. And he had indicated that, here's where that number came from. The Coordinating Council meets, and they looked at other states and what other states were doing in terms of funding, and really the funding in other states ranged from like $3 million, and I think Oregon was the highest with like $100 million a year. And so they came up with the recommendation at their meeting. I believe it was their May 4th, 2022 meeting, which would have been about a year ago. They came up with the $3 million ask, and they picked the lowest end on purpose because they didn't want to have to return the money. So they said, we would like to start with $3 million because that's the lowest we could find. We think we can spend that in our communities in our 17 different counties. But I think obviously the intent there is to track that, see how it goes, and perhaps be back in the next budgeting cycle to ask for more if they need more next biennium. And then, of course, if it doesn't make the budget, then we'll be back in this situation. But my sincere hope is that through tracking the data, they're going to see that this was an investment that was well worth it, not just for keeping people out of the criminal justice system, but just to fill some of those gaps that we talk about in this building every day that are happening in our community.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we will move to support of Assembly Bill 388. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to testify in support? Seeing none, and I still don't see anyone in Las Vegas. Do we have anyone joining us by phone, BPS?
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers at this time.
Nobody wants to join us here tonight. What's up with that? All right, then we will move to opposition. Is there anyone here in the room that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 388? Seeing none, And there's still no one in Las Vegas, and I am assuming there's still no one at all on the phone lines, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you so much. All right, so is there anyone that would like to testify in the neutral? Seeing none, and seeing no one in Las Vegas. Do you have any closing comments? All right, so with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 388. And that takes us to our last bill for the evening. It is Assembly Bill 461, and it revises provisions relating to the public employees retirement system. There. Good evening. And I think it's still light outside, so that's a good thing.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for hearing this bill this evening for us. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. I am Tina Liss. I'm the Executive Officer of the Public Employees Retirement System of Nevada. Assembly Bill 461 was requested by the Retirement Board to create the position of Chief Administrative Analyst within the PERS executive staff structure. The cost associated with the creation of the position was included in the proposed budget submitted by the Retirement Board to the Legislature. The Nevada Constitution and NRS Chapter 286 create the Retirement Board's authority to hire necessary staff to properly administer the system in Article 9, Section 2, Subsection 4 of the Constitution, and in NRS 286, 170, Subsection 1. NRS 286-160 sets forth certain positions that the board must employ and the qualifications required to hold those positions. AB 461 proposes to amend NRS 286-160 to include the position of Chief Administrative Analyst within those of the list of positions that are necessary for the board to employ. The structure of the retirement system is somewhat unique when compared to other governmental agencies. In addition to the provisions of the Nevada Constitution, NRS 286-110 sub 1 provides the system is a public agency supported by administrative fees transferred from the retirement funds and provides for regular review of the system by the executive and the legislative departments of state government. The retirement fund is a trust fund which must be administered for the exclusive benefit of the members and beneficiaries of our system. The board and certain staff members are fiduciaries in the trust to the trust fund. As such, the board must exercise extreme care and independence in managing the executive staff structure. Due to the growth of the system, complexity of laws and regulations governing the system, complexity of the system's projects, succession planning, and our fiduciary duties, the board has determined it's in the best interest of the system to include this position in the executive staff. I'll now turn it over to Cabrina Fazer, our operations officer, to give you a brief recitation of the proposed duties of this position.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cabrina Fazer. I'm the operations officer for the Public Employees Retirement System of Nevada. The Retirement Board has requested the Chief Administrative Analyst to create a series within the executive staff and allow for practical distribution of work between two analysts due to increased workload and complexity. This position will act as the liaison between business and the executive staff for the implementation of our new pension administration system and also assist with organizational change management. They will support agency objectives, such as supporting the audit committee of the board and the internal audit team, monitoring federal and IRS regulations, such as the Federal Secure 2.0 Act, as well as the changes to the W4P, W4R, and required minimum distribution provisions. Review and update official policies to meet evolving business needs, and will be the project lead for ongoing actuary inquiries and reporting. In addition, the Chief Administrative Analyst will be responsible for identifying potential areas of compliance vulnerability and risk, and assist with development, implementation of risk management, and mitigation for resolution of problematic issues, and provide guidance on how to avoid or address similar situations in the future. They will report directly to the board and be a part of the executive staff, and that is all I have prepared.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation. We do have one question. Assemblywoman Heidegger.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. And I was on looking to see if there was any fiscal notes, and I'm assuming you're here because this is going to be a cost. And as I read through the bill, I see that the Section 2 kind of highlights that the salary of the chief administrative analyst must not exceed the amount set forth in the budget that's approved by the legislature, but it doesn't make reference to how much that's going to cost us. So can you just let us know what that's going to be for the biennium or annually?
Do you want to answer that, or would you like for me to answer it?
Sure, if
Okay.
you'd like to.
So, no, I'm just going to let the committee know, the reason that this bill is before us tonight is because it's a budget implementation bill. So, but you can go ahead.
TLS for the record. And I am just reading off of your budget closing document from last Saturday morning. And so it says the system recommends administrative fees of $201,079 in fiscal year 2024 and $196,119 in fiscal year 25. And those were included in the budget, and those are funded through the administrative per capita fees assessed against the trust fund.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? All right, so we did cover this last Saturday, but we needed the bill to go along with the information that we had.
And, excuse me, TLS for the record, if I could clarify one thing. The executive staff positions, the board sets the salaries. The board hires the executive officer then hires the chief administrative analyst. I just wanted to make sure that was clear in the testimony as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that clarification. Members, any other questions? All right, seeing none, I thank you. We'll go to support of Assembly Bill 461. And I think it's just you and your staff in the room left. So I don't think we'll have any support testimony. And I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. So I'll make this last ask. Is there anyone on the phone?
If you would like to testify in support of AB 461, please press *9 now. Caller, you are unmuted and may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, or should I say good evening, Chair Monroe Moreno and Vice Chair Bacchus and committee. My name for the record is Terry Laird, spelled Terrilaird. I'm the Executive Director of RPEN, Retired Public Employees of Nevada, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We represent close to 8,000 dues-paying members in 17 chapters statewide who are all PERS recipients. Since our formation in 1977, one of our missions has been to protect the pensions earned by PERS participants, and we fully support AB 461 to create this new position, Chief Administrative Analyst. Nevada PERS continually ranks high among its peers and does so with a smaller than usual staff, and we recognize the importance and need of this new position and expert in the field and ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for calling in. I think you're the only one tonight, maybe one other. BPS, do we have any other callers?
Chair, there are no additional callers.
Thank you so much. Then we will close support and move to opposition. I don't think there's anyone in the room testifying in opposition. I don't see anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have any other callers on the line at all?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you. And seeing that there's no one here in the room to testify in neutral and no one in Las Vegas, I think we can close the hearing on Assembly Bill 461, and I thank you for joining us tonight. Members, that brings us to the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. And I don't see anyone here in Carson City to make public comment or in Las Vegas. And there was no one on the phone line, if I am correct.
Chair, that would be correct.
Thank you so much. So members, you have the rest of your evening back. This meeting is adjourned.